Hi everybody, it's Mrs. Eliason. I hope you guys had a really great long weekend and that you got outside and you're enjoying some of this beautiful fall weather. I'll tell you, fall is my favorite time of year. I love that the weather's starting to get a little cooler and the leaves are changing. I just love fall. Anyhow, I'm going to do a little book talk this week of a very, very silly book that I think you guys will enjoy. It is called Flora and Ulysses, and it's written by an excellent author, Kate DeCamillo. Now, you guys definitely have read Kate DeCamillo books. She is very popular. When you were a little younger, many of you read Mercy Watson. Those books, right, about the pig that gets in all kinds of adventures and all kinds of trouble. Well, those books are written by Kate DeCamillo. And then she has a lot of chapter books also that she's written. Some of her most well-known ones are Because of Winn-Dixie. That's a really well-known one. My favorite is Tale of Despero. I love that book. She also wrote The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane, which is also really great. And she is an award-winning author. This book, in fact, won a really big award. This book won the John Newbery Medal, which is the top award for children's literature. Okay, and the way the Newbery Medal works is every year a group of, children's authors and librarians and publishers, they all get together and they select a bunch of books that they feel were the best books that year, and then they vote on them. And the book that gets the most votes gets the gold medal, and then there's some runner-ups that get a silver medal. Now, there's no bronze medal like the Olympics, but basically gold is the top, silver is second place, and there's always one gold, and I believe there's about 4 silver medals given out every year. So this won the gold medal, so this book was voted as being the best book the year it came out. In fact, let me figure out what year did it come out. We can always find out when a book was published by going to the copyright page, and that's the page that has all this teeny tiny writing, and I can see it says text copyright 2013. Okay, so this book was written about 7 years ago, and it won the Newbery Medal for that year. So let me tell you about this book. It is a silly book. It is absolutely ridiculous. And some of the book is styled like a comic book. And even the very beginning of the book is done like a comic book. So I'm going to do my best to try to explain what's going on in this comic. So it says, in the Tickham kitchen, late on a summer afternoon. And here we have a woman, and she's just sitting reading a poetry book. And there's a man behind her with what appears to be a very strange machine. Okay, and the man says, ahem. And he says, happy birthday to you. And then she says, what's this, Donald? He replies, this is your birthday present. It is a Ulysses Super Suction Multi-Terrain 2000X. Happy birthday. It's a vacuum cleaner. It's a Ulysses 2000X. Yep. It's the crown jewel of vacuums. It features an extra long cord so that absolutely no mess, no dirt is ever out of your reach. It's indoor, outdoor. It goes everywhere. It does everything. Goody. She's not even looking up from her book. She just says, goody. You have to try it out. Turn it on. Oh, for heaven's sakes, Donald. Please. All right, so she hits the button on the vacuum, and immediately it just starts sucking up things. And it actually sucks up her husband's pants. And he says, whoa, hey now. And then the vacuum cleaner sucks up her poetry book. And the lady says, what in the world, Donald? And he replies, it's multi-terrain. You should try it outside. So she goes outside. And that's how it all began, with a vacuum cleaner, really. All right, already we know this is a weird book because we just have this whole beginning about a wife getting a vacuum cleaner for her birthday that is an extremely powerful vacuum cleaner that had basically sucked up his pants, sucked up her book, and now she's taking it outside. All right, so now the author is switching to just text. Okay, so now I'm going to read to you this first chapter, and you're going to see this is a weird book. All right, so Chapter 1, A Natural Born Cynic. Flora Bell Buckman was in her room at her desk. She was very busy. She was doing 2 things at once. She was ignoring her mother, and she was also reading a comic book entitled The Illuminated Adventures of the Amazing Incandesto. Flora, her mother shouted, what are you doing up there? I'm reading, Flora shouted back. "Remember the contract," her mother shouted. "Do not forget the contract." At the beginning of the summer, in a moment of weakness, Flora had made the mistake of signing a contract that said she would work to turn her face away from the silly hijinks of comics and toward the bright light of true literature. Those were the exact words of the contract. They were her mother's words. Flora's mother was a writer. She was divorced and she wrote romance novels. Ugh, talk about silly hijinks. Flora hated romance novels. In fact, she hated romance. "I hate romance," said Flora out loud to herself. She liked the way the words sounded. She imagined them floating above her in a comic strip bubble. It was a comforting thing to have words hanging over her head, especially negative words about romance. And we see the illustration. Here's the girl, and those words, "I hate romance," have now formed in a bubble above her head. Flora's mother had often accused Flora of being a natural-born cynic. Flora suspected this was true. She was a natural-born cynic who lived in defiance of contracts. Yep, thought Flora, that's me. She bent her head and went back to reading about the amazing incandesto. She was interrupted a few minutes later by a very loud noise. It sounded as if a jet plane had landed in the Tickums' backyard. "What in the world?" said Flora. She got up from her desk and looked out the window and saw Mrs. Tickum running around the backyard with a shiny, oversized vacuum cleaner. It looked like she was vacuuming up her yard. "That can't be," thought Flora. "Who vacuums their yard?" Actually, it didn't look like Mrs. Tickum knew what she was doing. It was more like the vacuum cleaner was in charge, and the vacuum cleaner seemed out of its mind, or its engine, or something. "A few bolts shy of a load," said Flora out loud. Then she saw that Mrs. Tickum and the vacuum cleaner were headed directly for a squirrel. "Hey now," said Flora. She banged on the window. "Watch out," she shouted. "You're going to vacuum up that squirrel." She said the words, and then she saw them in a strange moment of, she had a strange moment of seeing them hanging there over her head. "You're going to vacuum up that squirrel." There is just no predicting what kind of sentences you might say, thought Flora. For instance, who would ever think you would shout, "You're going to vacuum up that squirrel"? It didn't make any difference, though, what word she said. Flora was too far away. The vacuum cleaner was too loud. And also, clearly, it was bent on destruction. "This malfeasance must be stopped," said Flora in a deep and superheroic voice. "This malfeasance must be stopped" was what the unassuming janitor Alfred T. Slipper always said before he was transformed into the amazing incandesto and became a towering, crime-fighting pillar of light. Unfortunately, Alfred T. Slipper wasn't present. Where was Incandesto when you needed him? Not that Flora really believed in superheroes, but still. She looked at the window and watched as the squirrel was vacuumed up. Whoop! "Holy bagumba," said Flora. And here's the picture to go with what was just read. Okay, so that is the first chapter of this book. Okay, it is a weird book. It is very weird, okay? And obviously, comic books are a big influence on this type of story, okay? So we know right now we've got a girl who loves superhero stories. We've got a vacuum cleaner that's out of control and just vacuumed up a squirrel. All right, so I don't know what's gonna happen, but I'm sure it's gonna be something weird and something interesting. All right, friends, so definitely recommend this book, Flora and Ulysses, written by the great Kate DeCamillo. Have a wonderful week, everybody.